This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucie Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Thanks for joining me for this episode 91. I'm getting excited and slightly nervous for episode 100, which is due to be released on July the 8th. I'm still not exactly sure what I'm going to do, but I am going to be making a big announcement. And it's everything that's leading up to that big announcement. It's what's making me excited and nervous. So in this episode, we are going to continue on the path of the self-improvement journey. This is part 4 of a series of 7. And today we're going to chat about risk and stepping out of your comfort zone. So to start off, I want you to think about a couple of things. What if Sylvester Stallone had never had the courage to write Rocky or didn't hold out strong to play the lead role himself? Walt Disney had lost the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, but he kept pushing and taking risks and eventually created Mickey Mouse. J.K. Rowling's continued pushing forward after multiple rejections and finally found a publisher that believed in her book as much as she did. And ladies, would we even know the brand Spanx if Sarah Blakely hadn't taken a risk? Sure, someone would have been standing in the wings ready to step in to that limelight and do the things that they couldn't do. But you wouldn't know their names. It would be somebody else's name on the receiving end. What good ideas have you let fade away? How many opportunities have you passed on only for somebody else to swoop in and grab your glory? You can't really blame them because they simply took opportunities that you didn't. You never know what life is going to throw your way, and you're never going to know how it's going to work out, whether you risk or you don't. One thing is for sure is that if you're not taking risks, you're going to stay exactly where you are. So, are you happy where you are? Life has no guarantees, and you have no idea of what might be. I do want to make a distinction between risk and uncertainty because the two aren't the same, but it's also not uncommon for them to be confused. And this is why maybe people don't really take risks even when they think they are. As far as true risk goes, that's when there are unknown elements, or rather known elements and outcomes, and you can attempt to calculate or predict what's going to happen. You won't know all of the exact ins and outs, but you'll have some degree of certainty. It's like if you open a brand new pack of cards and you shuffle it. You probably have about a 25% chance of drawing a card with a diamond on it. And if you're a gambler, I'm not, so I'm kind of guessing on this one, it would give you some idea of the odds of the outcome. Yeah, kind of like picking a chocolate out of the box without looking at the little card to tell you which is which. You may not pick your favorite, but you have a pretty good chance of picking one you like, especially if there's only one flavor that you don't. That's what risk is. Uncertainty? That's what life is. There are no odds to calculate whether your relationship will stand the test of time because you can't calculate how the other person will evolve. There's no odds to calculate whether your book will get published and succeed because ultimately you can't predict how people will respond. The same goes for starting a business, sharing ideas, trying something new, or creating art. So when we are talking about risk taking, what people really mean is uncertainty. That's what it truly means to take a risk. It's about stepping into the unknown. Keep that in mind because that's the risk I'm focused on, the true risk, uncertainty. Maybe you're wondering, why does risk even matter? Why is it important? It's up to you how you live your life. And throughout your life, you'll be presented with many opportunities. You get to choose what you'll act on and make decisions that will shape who you are and build your identity. All of that is influenced by the risks you decide to take. The more risks you take, the more often you step into the unknown, the more those elements in your life will expand. The fewer risks you take and the less often you step into the unknown, the more those things in your life will contract. You'll limit yourself if you take less risks. You remain stuck in a comfort zone that doesn't give you the room to grow, and that can make you miserable. Oh, I couldn't possibly do that. I don't think that's a good idea. It's too difficult for me. If I risk this, then that could happen, and I don't want that. No, I'm not stupid enough to do that. So many excuses. These are permission slips to get out of taking action. Whether it's standing up for what's right, starting a business, traveling alone, confessing your feelings, or writing a book. It gets easier to make excuses when you decide that there's no need to step into the unknown because it isn't really that unknown. You think that you can predict the outcome, and you think it's not worth the risk. Look, we all have our own levels of risk aversion, but some people build their entire lives on the back of being extremely risk adverse. They are so certain that nothing will ever go their way if they take chances, so they convince themselves that chances aren't worth taking. The only person that hurts is themselves because they may never discover what they could have done. The truth of the matter is, I could have done that. It wasn't too difficult for me. It wasn't stupid. I underestimated myself. And if you never get to those bits, then you never get the thrill of saying, I'm so glad I took that risk. The only way you can succeed on your journey of self-improvement is to take risks and make stepping into them a part of you. Right now, the only reason you may be afraid to take risk is that you've made a list of negative and incorrect beliefs about risk-taking. More to the point, you've made negative and incorrect beliefs about yourself. The true risk in life is refusing to take any risk at all. If you are risk adverse, then this is particularly important for you because it's easier said than done. And I get that. The most successful people will always say you should take risks. Their belief in risk taking probably comes down to the fact that it has always played out well for them. They believe risk taking is key to their success. And if risk taking worked for them, then why can't it work for you? Of course, not everyone can quit their job and eat ramen noodles while they attempt to launch a business. But taking risk is still an important part of living, and you can't get away from it. Each day is made up of a multitude of small risks that can alter the outcome. Say at some point you developed a belief that you can't make more than a certain amount of money. So because you have this belief, you don't think twice about spending money on what makes you happy in that moment. But if you had a different belief, if you believed you are capable of making a lot more money, then you may be more likely to invest that money in yourself. With that limiting belief, you sold yourself a lie. You've sold yourself the belief that you don't have the courage to follow your ideas and your dreams. That's self-sabotage in its purest form. You'll never be faced with big risks and opportunities to dive headfirst into them if you aren't willing to take those small daily risks. You'll never even notice those small risks if you spend all of your energy convincing yourself you can't do it or you shouldn't do it. All of this is self-sabotage. The truth is, you don't know how things will turn out. You can't know. The bigger the risk, the greater the unknown. And that's really scary. The point is that even though you don't and can't know, there is one thing you can and do know, and that is if you don't take a risk, you won't move forward. The key to self-improvement and risk-taking is knowing which risks are important enough for you to take. This gives you a starting point, and they are typically the most avoided risks to take. These risks revolve around you in your comfort zone. Change, rejection, vulnerability, these are all possibilities. But on the other side, you can find growth, love, success, and happiness. What are your comfort zones? Because you can't get out of them until you see them. Your comfort zone is your state of mind when you're at ease and feel in control. We all have different comfort zones because it's based on our tolerances for stress and anxiety. I know that doesn't sound so bad. Stress management is important. But chronic stress is the problem. Acute stress is good. Remember that. Your comfort zone has served a purpose, and you can go back to it when you need to, but you can't stay stuck there. Let me ask you this. Is there something that you really want to do, but it scares the crap out of you? Is there a smaller step that you can take? Maybe you want to be a stand-up comedian, but you start with posting some videos about you telling jokes. It'll still be scary, but it's a small step out of your comfort zone, and then you can quickly step back in. But ultimately, that comfort zone just grew a tiny bit bigger. It's all about baby steps. You know the old saying about getting on a bike after you fall off? Comfort and growth simply don't ride the same bike. What you want out of life will always mean that you need to embrace some discomfort, and you will need to take action in the face of your fears. No shortcuts to courage or substitutes for bravery. To become the person you want to be, the person you need to be, to create the life that you want, you have to be willing to do what scares you. And you're not going to find a magic potion to help you overcome fear, but there's a few things that you can do to be fearless and elevate yourself and your life. One person that you will need to conquer along the way is your inner critic. It's what I often refer to as the itty bitty shitty committee, because you are your own worst enemy. At least your inner critic is your worst enemy, and you have to have the courage to call it out for what it is. It's a big fat liar. It's difficult to escape, but you can put it in its place. If you want to dive into more about your inner critic, go back to episode 4 with Kylie Delfino. She does a fantastic job of explaining what it is and where it all comes from, where it starts. If you do want to be braver and take more risks, then you'll need to reframe how you look at risk. That starts right here and right now. Sometimes the safest course of action is taking risk. It's easy to imagine how awful things could get if we take a risk and fail. But with such a wild imagination, why do we find it so difficult to imagine that risk actually paying off? The focus is on what could or will go wrong if we step out of our comfort zones, but we simply can't even think of all the possibilities of stepping out of our comfort zone and good things happening. I want you to flip the fear by imagining yourself in the future. Imagine how it would feel if you continue letting fear drive things. See yourself standing in front of a mirror. Look yourself in the eye, whether it's 5 or 10 years from now. How does it feel knowing that fear stopped you from doing so many things? Don't leave it there. Do it again now. But this time, do it with the future you who flipped fear the bird and took risks, achieved everything that you wanted. How does that feel? Now, which experience would you rather have? Along the way, you're also going to have to embrace failure. It's easy to give in to your limiting beliefs and allow them to take over, and you're vulnerable to your limiting beliefs if you let them outweigh any potential good. You have to be able to see your limiting beliefs to overcome them as well. Part of that is embracing failure. Now, failure is not the end of the world, but that doesn't mean that it's easy to embrace. Failure isn't the end. Think of it like a new beginning. It's inevitable. It's uncomfortable. And with every failure comes the closure of a door, but another one opens. Think about some of your past failures and what you learned from them and how you use what you learned to move forward. Life didn't just end there. It started over in some way. Like all things in life, taking risk comes down to a choice. Each day, we get to choose how we show up, how we act, and how we react. Yes, with risk and stepping out of your comfort zone will come change, vulnerability, failure, rejection. But you will also rediscover your true self, growth, and success. You'll have to embrace the unknown and become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And if you think it's too hard or not worth it, ask yourself, who do you want to be in 5 or 10 years? The person who stepped into the unknown and took risks, or the person who asks, what if? Thank you for joining me today. Remember, your support of the roller coaster is always appreciated. If you can, leave a rating and a review. It will help me reach more people. Join me next Friday for episode 96, where I'll chat about looking to your past to heal and move forward. And until then, I'm sending you my virtually distant hugs. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creator.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Life is like